I would like to extend to all of you a very warm welcome. Peter and I have been, or just recently finished reading one of the books, biography of St. Francis, and it was extremely important to Francis that the brothers get together twice a year. And he had two very special times of the year for them to get together. And as the director of a community that's growing and expanding in a number of different ways, I share that desire that he had of the brothers gathering. And so it is good that we are here, and I think it's important that we be here and that we make these times, even more of a priority at this point because, again, we are so scattered around. So it's great to be with all of you. The theme for my reflection this morning is focus and fight. Focus and fight. And so I think there are three things that I'm going to ask you to focus on, and three things that I think we have to fight against in our world today. So, first, I invite you, my brothers, to focus, especially this morning during our holy hour, on your journey to Christ. Your journey to Christ. Grateful remembering, we know, is a critical dimension of the Christian life. It's at the heart of what the Eucharist is, but it is critical, I think, to being a human being and to being a Christian. And for most of us, I would have to imagine that the seeds of our faith were planted in our homes. And what a gift that is. And so we need to give thanks to God for our parents who, introduced us to the faith, encouraged us in so many ways, drove us to RE classes, dragged us to Mass on Sundays when we didn't want to, taught us to pray at meals, and all of those things that parents do to help share their faith with their children. And so we need to be extremely grateful to them. But then I would imagine that for most of us, there was a ministry, a youth ministry, a campus ministry that helped us to encounter Jesus perhaps on a new level, a deeper level. And so, in my own life, it was unquestionably CLC, the original Catholic Life Community, that was at St. Anthony's and run by Eduardo. And, I was reflecting upon this, and it, the things that I love dearly today, I learned to love in CLC. And so the love that I have for the Eucharist, the love that I have for the sacrament of penance, the love that I have for the sacred scriptures, the love that I have for the church, the love that I have for community life, the love that I have for serving other people in the church and serving even the poor. I learned those things in CLC. I came to love those things. And they are my greatest loves today. Brothers, this is why we exist. We exist to bring young people to Christ in the church. To journey with them. To take precious time to be with them. To care for them in real and sacrificial ways. To help them encounter Jesus Christ in powerful and life-changing ways. And this project requires all kinds of sacrifice of our hobbies, of our relaxation, of our money, of our lifestyle, all kinds of sacrifices. And so I want you to spend some time this morning remembering your journey to Christ. Second, I invite you to focus on Jesus' love for you. This love, we have to remember over and over, is not earned. We don't earn it. And He loves me in spite of my sins. And He loves me in the very midst of my weaknesses and my brokenness and my failures, even at this stage in my life. He loves me more than I can imagine. The Lord is the one who gives meaning to the phrase, "I love you to death." He loves you enough, brothers, to wash your stinky feet and to appear to you when you are running away and to give you a second chance so that you can call Him my Lord and my God. He reinstates you as a son in His family and recommissions you after you deny Him. And He feeds you with His precious body and blood. There is nothing more wonderful in this world than God's love for you and for me. Nothing. Thirdly, we need to make sure that we focus on what is most important. And I hope that that is part of what happens on these days when we gather together. And so the most important thing, my brothers, is in fact to remain close to that God and to stay united with Jesus and to be a man whose life is deeply rooted in prayer and sacraments. Because Jesus is the greatest gift that we have in this world, bar none. And so we need to stay focused on remaining close to Him and sharing that gift of Jesus with others. With our family, first and foremost, for those of you who are married, for sure. With our co-workers and with our neighbors and with our relatives, and obviously with the young people entrusted to our care. There are many less important things that try to creep in and crowd out what is most important. And we have to, every so often, get back and remember what is most important. In addition to our need to stay focused, I think we also have to be willing to fight. And so, brothers, I think we have to fight the pull toward selfishness. You know, when you have two magnets and you kind of want to see how strong they are, and you get them a little close and you pull it back, and then you try and get a little closer and you pull it back, and you get a little closer and pull it back, but at one point they go like that. The strength of magnets is pretty amazing sometimes, depending on the size, obviously, and the power. Sometimes it seems almost impossible to keep them apart. Well, our broken human nature constantly feels the pull to be selfish, to live for myself, to do it all on my own because I don't need anybody else, to stop living sacrificially for those whom God puts into my life because I'm just tired, to zero in on all the things that I deserve in this world, to dwell on how I am always misunderstood and unappreciated, and therefore I'm just going to do my own thing and I'm going to take care of myself because no one else does. The pull is very, very strong, and we have to fight against it. There is no greater love than this, to lay down our lives for our friends. Secondly, we have to fight against the attack of our culture. You know, it's one thing brothers, it is one thing for us to have to fight against our own broken and selfish nature. And then it's another thing to heap on top of that a culture that is out of control these days with its lack of faith and its awful values. And so we are bombarded constantly with a message that teaches us that happiness comes from things and entertainment, rather than from God and from living our lives for others. the legalization of marijuana, same-sex marriages, the horrible treatment of immigrants, in vitro fertilization, pornography on the internet, contraception, animal rights that are greater than human rights, the attack on religious freedom, fanatical Muslim groups that are attacking Christians all around the world, the neglect of the poor and the disadvantaged. It's all over. Our culture is just a weight these days. And brothers, we have to be willing to persevere and fight the good fight and stand firm in the face of our culture. Finally, brothers, I would like to say that I think that we need to fight fatigue. There is so much to do in God's vineyard, the work seems absolutely endless. The laborers are indeed few, and so we feel sometimes like we need to do even more. And our tasks and burdens quickly become overwhelming. And it feels like we are bombarded by the waves of the ocean that just won't stop. I was talking to a brother the other day who, you get the controls set up in your house for your children in terms of the internet and in terms of the television and that kind of a thing. And then you got to be worried about updating that all the time. And the next thing you know, your kids are getting new, ways of getting access to the internet. And then you just get worn out with trying to help them and help them with their controls. Pope Francis, speaks about the different kinds of fatigue. And I shared some of this on retreat. Allow me to repeat it, please. The problem is not always an excess of activity, but rather activity undertaken badly. Without adequate motivation, without a spirituality, which would permeate it and make it pleasurable. As a result, work becomes more tiring than necessary, even leading at times to illness. Far from a content and happy tiredness, this is a tense, burdensome, dissatisfying, and in the end, unbearable fatigue. This pastoral acedia can be caused by a number of things. Some fall into it because they throw themselves into unrealistic projects and are not satisfied simply to do what they reasonably can. Others because they lack patience to allow the process to mature. They want everything to fall from heaven. Others because they are attached to a few projects or certain dreams of success. Others because they have lost real contact with people and so depersonalize their work that they are more concerned about the roadmap than they are with the journey itself. We have lost real contact with people. And so, my brothers, that again to me points back to the fact that we've got to be men of deep prayer so that we don't lose that focus, and so that in the end, that fatigue, which we're going to have, is something that actually is pleasurable. Because we're exhausted because we've done what the Lord wants us to do during the day. And so, I ask you to focus on your journey to Christ, on the love that Christ has for you, and indeed what is most important in life.